gotta focus on yourself, on your faith, on your dreams, on your mind, on your health, yeah. You gotta work, never tell, keep your head down, find what you love and excel, yeah. Push and pull and repel any hate, go create what you want, feel compelled, yeah. And once you finally get a taste of the race, you'll never look back once you felt that. Don't let somebody take your time and your worth, just focus on yourself first. Don't let somebody take your time and your worth, just focus on yourself first. Don't let somebody...
Hello, good evening from here. You're welcome to Opinion Sharers. My name is Paul, and today we're going to be discussing an issue that pertains to Africa. And I have some eminent guests in the house tonight who are going to be dishing out facts, knowledge that is based on research, that is based on facts. We'll be dissecting the recent military coups that is becoming, is becoming a reason for concern in Africa, especially in West African countries. So please, if you're joining us quickly, let's share it. Let's share it and invite people who might be interested in the show, in the topic of discussion. Please do help us share the link. And I would advise my guest, if you can, please, let's share the link, especially on Facebook. We are live on Facebook right now. We are live on Twitter and YouTube. So please, let's invite people to join the discussion.
Yeah, the link is not showing on Facebook, which is very strange.
It's not?
Yeah,
Okay,
let me
get you the link. I'll try to get
okay,
you
I
the
got
link.
it now.
Okay.
I got it through some other places.
Okay. So please do share the link. Let's invite people who might be interested in this discussion. We have people from, we have a guest from Ghana, we have a guest from Uganda, and we have a guest from Mali. He is currently struggling now. He has said his network may not be good, but he is currently in the studio, but not sure we can hear him, and we're not certain he can hear us as well. But we will try, make the best out of it. If we cannot, he said he will send word, even if he cannot join us. So fingers crossed for Mr. Sidi. So if you have shared, please let us quickly take a few minutes to introduce ourselves. So I'm going to start with the village boy.
Thank you so very much. You always start with me. I am the village boy.
Okay. Thank you. That's the village boy. And then I would have Mr. George. Please, can you unmute yourself and introduce yourself, since it's your first time on this channel. So please do introduce yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is George Kweku Jeto from the Republic of Ghana. I work as consultant on youth issues. I also work with the local government service, and I teach as an adjunct lecturer in one of the private universities called Presbyterian University in Ghana. With regards to research, I have a number of research interests, particularly in technical vocational education, in municipal finance, that's district assemblies and how they are able to generate resources in order to carry out municipal services. And I've also done few things in the development of organizations. So I come onto this platform with a youthful background and with some level of research into education and how we can stabilize young people in Ghana and within the African continent. And so for me, I'm very happy to be here for the first time. And I've been sharing knowledge with some of other colleagues on the background. And I think together we can project Africa as one of the safest places to be, no matter how the coup d'etats are occurring. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, bro. Um, just for the sake of people who are joining us for the first time, Opinion Sharers is a platform that is deliberately created for everyday people to share opinion on important national and continental issues. We discuss issues relating to politics. We discuss issues relating to economics, social issues. Yesterday, I was on this show discussing with some friends from Kenya, and discussing views of Kenyans about Nigerians. So all issues like that we discuss on Opinion Sharers. We want people to be able to be heard. We want people's opinion to be heard. Normally, people like me might not have an opportunity on national TV stations in Nigeria, and so we created this one to give everybody an opportunity, a fair chance to be heard. And so I'm going to ask Michael to introduce himself right now.
Yeah, thank you so much and good evening, our viewers. I'm Michael Olaogun by name. I'm a Nigerian and, of course, a democracy fellow passionate about the development and growth of Africa. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Our friend James from Uganda, please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you very much, Paul. I'm good. I'm glad to be back on the show. I think this has been a very big opportunity for me, especially to voice out my opinions on this wonderful platform. Hopefully, someday these opinions will shape the governance discourse in Africa. And like the rest of my colleagues have actually introduced themselves, I think I find myself now an ardent panelist on this show on a number of issues, governance, democracy. At some point, we were discussing issues of tribalism. Well, all these are issues that we as young Africans, must voice out because Africa is apparently a young, very, very young continent with over 600 million uh, people below the age of 30. So when we see the aspects of the coup d'etats coming on board, I don't know whether my background may not be very, very cumbersome, but I will try to minimize the noise in the background. So I'm saying that apparently we cannot just keep quiet, seeing things happen the way they happen, because we must shape the future of our continent. We must stand out. So for now, I think let me leave my introduction at this point and then secure my background. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, bro. I'm glad you're gonna do that for us. So uh, the issue of coup that has been happening, I think it's not new to many of us because I know there are a lot of us who are passionate about Africa, who are passionate about peace, who are passionate about a lot of things that is going on in Africa because we are, I consider us, patriotic citizens of different countries. Um, Michael, I've been calling my attention to it for a while, and we've been planning to have this discussion, and I'm glad we're finally doing so. We ought to have somebody from Mali, from the Republic of Mali. I believe that it's a republic, and but unfortunately, because of internet challenge, he was unable to join. He was trying to join us earlier, but then he is not able to at the moment because of poor network. He said he's at a remote location, so he sent words. He just dropped a message for me on WhatsApp, and I believe he must have probably dropped some words with James also. Anyway, I would ask Mr. George to give us an introduction to this this recent incessant military coups in Africa, and especially West Africa. And I'm calling George because of his profile in Africa. He's been doing a lot of studies, and I've personally read his profile that was sent to me. So I want him to speak, give us an introduction into that. And after that, I will also ask the village boy to give a voice. And then Michael, who is also passionate about Africa, would also give a voice, and then I will begin to ask my questions. Thank you. Mr. George, please.
Thank you very much. Generally, you will associate coup d'etats with military takeovers. There are few situations where, particularly in my country, you have a combination of civilian and military coming together to overthrow a government. And so, as you said, particularly those of us in the West Africa region, coup d'etats are not new to us. In fact, even as far as 1966, Ghana, for instance, experienced its first coup d'etat where our first president, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, was overthrown when he himself was out of the country. Now, in order not to bore our listeners, if you associate all these coups or you put them together, or the military takeovers, there is only one issue that all of them will say, or there will be communication. That is, they associate these coup d'etats with poor condition of living in our countries. They associate the coups with corruption and how these governments have become incessant to the demands and the needs of the people within our Africa sub-region. Now, right away from 1966, most of our West Africa countries, particularly what I call the big giant, you talk about Ghana, you talk about Nigeria, you talk about Mali, you talk about Ivory Coast and all those places, they have experienced one coup or the other. And the issues are not different. But again, if you look at the current occurrence of coup d'etats, there are a number of reasons you can associate with it beyond the measure of the corruption, which probably our government or our leaders or even ECOWAS, they have knowledge about but have not paid attention to. And I'll give you a few of them. Beyond the corruption, beyond the mismanagement, for all of us who have been born into these West African countries, we have started school. One of the things we know since we were in class 1 or in primary school is that Africa is endowed with natural resources. And so that has been engraved in our mind for a very long time. Now, what again also we know from the availability of these natural resources is that once we have natural resources, it is supposed to be beneficial to us. So for me in Ghana, before I was born, I knew that they have been mining gold, they have been mining diamond, they have been mining, other mineral resources, even before we discovered oil in 2008. Before I was born, I know Nigeria has been mining, oil. And there has been general concern, particularly among the populace, and most especially young people, that they have not benefited from these resources. And the idea is that there are few people who are benefiting from these natural resources. To worsen the situation, if you go into communities where these minings are done, it's pathetic. They look even more impoverished than even those of us who are not from those mining communities. So this is one of the issues that many Africans have been agitating against. Then another thing I think ECOWAS has not paid attention to is that right away from 1980s through the 1990s, our population dynamics have changed in terms of the fact that we have now more young people than those who are depending on us. So when I put a dependency class, I talk about those above 60s and those below the age of 15. Because if you take most of African countries, we put the youth bracket between 15 and 35. I think Mali goes a bit to age 40. But largely, you see that a number of young people who form the bulk of our population. In fact, if you look at even Guinea-Bissau, it's about 55%. If you look at Ghana, we are a bit 60%. If you look at Nigeria, the same story is the same. Now, once we have this young active population, unfortunately, they are not at the receiving end of government policies or plans. If you take all the West African countries, and by extension, most African countries, every negative thing that happens to people in the population is the young people. So when you talk about unemployment, they are the young people. If you talk about drug abuse, they are the young people. If you talk about more people that are going to prisons, it's the young people. Because they cannot access employment in order to take care of their livelihood, they keep going into violence, crimes, and then, now when all these things happens, desperation set in. And when desperation set in, there is need for survival. And so most of these people will do anything if anybody convince them in order to ensure that they get military assistance or they influence the military in order to take over governance. Unfortunately, when there are military takeovers, it has also not benefited the large people. So even though we have experienced military takeovers, in some cases, it has not been beneficial. Another thing that I think ECOWAS has not paid attention to is that there is proliferation of guns and ammunition within our part of the world in terms of the continent. Now, if you study carefully, when the Liberia war happened, the question is, all the guns that were used in Liberia, where did they go to? Not long, we had the Ivorian Civil War. Not long, we have the Sierra Leone. I mean, I'm just talking about within the subcontinent. So you realize that once we have frustrated young people, we also have availability of ammunition that are just circulating on the continent. And so just by the mere or small causes that will happen, I call the immediate causes, in addition to the remote causes, there are coup d'etats. Then some way, somehow, a lot of our military personnel have problem in terms of even the rate at which they are promoted. Because it's a regimental organization, many of them go through the promotion slowly, coupled with the fact that many of them have not been well paid. So all those factors can be classified as remote causes, and then corruption becomes the main front of what? The immediate cause. Now, but we talk about corruption. Okay.
Wait, I will. I don't want you to go into all of that yet. I will take you there. Okay, I will take you there. But I want the village boy to look at a little bit of introduction, because I have some questions that I will be asking you to prompt you into some of these things that you are mentioning now. So just exercise some few patience for me.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Military coup actually in Africa started around the 1950s. And
village boy, please wait. Please, if you wanted people to watch it, it is the video. I mean, the Facebook link that you will share with them, not the link for this platform, for this studio, because I've seen two people who have come to the background, but I didn't accept them because I am not aware of them. I didn't want people to spam us. So if you share with the Facebook page with them, they are able to watch the Facebook live. They can even comment. They can drop their comment. They can even drop questions live from the Facebook, and we'll see. Or even if they are watching from YouTube, we would also see their questions and comments or contributions. Thank you. Please continue. I'm sorry for stopping you.
All right. So, like I said, coups actually started in the continent around the 1950s. And we have, I mean, there's a record of about 100 successful coups and about 108 unsuccessful coups, or what we call coup attempts. However, in the last decade alone, we thought that we have seen the end of coup, but unfortunately enough, we have had about 12 coups in the last decade. And we have also recorded 30 attempted coups. So today, if you look at that trajectory, the percentage of coup being successful now is getting lower than it was before this period. In the past, we have 100 successful and 108 unsuccessful. But in the last decade, we have 12 successful and 30 unsuccessful, or 30 attempted coup. Of course, the fundamental thing about coup is that the military wants to come and claim that because there was massive corruption, they want to come and cure or curb corruption and all those. But history has it that the military brought one major factor, and that is impunity. In fact, as we speak, Nigeria has become a republic. I mean, the fourth republic in Nigeria started in 1999, which is almost like 23 years now. That impunity has been enshrined. So they also come with even maybe that impunity also enabled them to have even higher level of corruption. I have documented some of these things in my book. Um, so then every coup is not just a military affair. See, when we think coup as a military affair, I think we are denying ourselves the depth knowledge we ought to have. Military coup most of the time is sponsored by the civilians. So the financing of coup is mostly by the civilians. It is the execution of the coup that is done by the military. So there's always that civilian collaboration. Maybe somebody to find that his party are not in control, or who has money and felt that he has been shortchanged and all that. So now gather these military boys, give them money and ammunition, and they strike. So in most, I can't, I'm not sure there's any military coup that does not have a very deep underground civilian involvement in it. So the military cannot strike by themselves without the civilian collaboration. I think we should establish that fact. I also like the trajectory that George is bringing to the issue, the non the non-vigilance of the ECOWAS government. But we also know also that ECOWAS has been permitting to use that word like a toothless bulldog. ECOWAS is more in, apart from trading, it allows people to trade. It's the only benefit I think in about ECOWAS is like, okay, like in those days when I fly to Ghana, I mean, I don't need visa. I can go to anywhere in West Africa without a visa. And other than that, honestly, I'm one person that have not really seen um, the real benefit of ECOWAS. Of course, there are these in terms of military intervention during Liberia War, Sierra Leone, the ECOMOG, and all those ones. Find those ones are part of it. But other than that, I don't think that ECOWAS is that powerful to be able to, um, because if they have instituted a kind of a governance, a kind of peer review mechanism, a kind of benchmark whereby they can uh, a kind of governance structure that may be beneficial to the people across West Africa. Maybe then you can now say they will play a bigger role in terms of preventing coup. The major thing is that is attracting coup, apart from corruption, is like lack of governance. Governance is the major issue, of course, but the measure of corruption is more appealing to the people, and unfortunately, the military come and they become more corrupt. So let me pause there so that we allow Paul to ask his questions.
All right. Thank you very much. I've been informed that Mr. CD from Mali has a message, but then James will be delivering that. Michael, can you just I'm thinking it's like people are loaded, so I have a lot of very brilliant people who are interested in the topic, and I think I should go on with my questions now. So I will start with Michael. Now, as a young African, why do you think even the civilians are, somehow calling for military takeover? Michael, please
Yeah.
just take
Good
take
evening.
only maximum 2 minutes, please. All right.
Okay. Can we all hear me, please?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, and it's good to engage the platform again. I must sincerely welcome Mr. George joining the conversation this evening. Yes. The historical and analytical perspectives that has been shared, they are all at home with me, and they are things that I had in mind to talk about. But when we look at the trajectory, I, as a person, I'm a pro-democracy fellow, though democracy has its deficiency. But when we look at the narrative presently, because by the virtue of sampling that I have done recently, I've had young people like myself, or perhaps people older than myself, saying, okay, they want military takeover. And of course, not those who are even within my age bracket. We have seen elderly people. But for those who have witnessed how military government has been, or rather was in the past, they would rather not want to bargain that we return back to military style of government because of the genocidal approach and all manners of abuse of fundamental human rights that took place. That is notwithstanding, or rather, not without the fact that there are still human rights abuses at present. But one thing that is a driving force is this, or rather propelling such view, is the fact that people are still being marginalized, despite the fact that we claim that we are in democracy, because the type of democracy we are practicing is more of the militaristic type. And that will now lead me to bringing this perspective into the discussion, in the sense that when we look at all of these countries where coup took place in the recent months, 18 months ago, Mali, Chad, Burkina Faso, and all other places like that, we can see that all of these people who led the coup, they are young military men, which is trying to actually, make me curious to ask that, is this how young Africans want to actually engage the governance space? Perhaps since it appears that some of us, or rather we have been marginalized in the scheme of things in the democratic settings, maybe there is a spiral, or rather there's a chain reaction within the military architecture in Africa that, okay, if these elements, if these are leaders, democratic leaders, are not giving us opportunity to engage in the democratic space, perhaps we can resort to the military approach to it. However, that is just an assertion. I may not be entirely correct, and I'm sure I will not be wrong. But the marginalization that young people have suffered in the past is one of the reasons, perhaps, that young people are now beginning to clamor for military to take over in the continent of Africa, because we have seen how the past leaders, inclusive of the present leaders, how they have monopolized the governance space in their countries, overstaying in power, manipulating the constitution to their favor, and all manners of things like that. So all of these are factors we need to consider as, in this subject of discussion. Thank you.
Okay, Michael, thank you very much. Thank you for staying to the time. Now, I want James to give a brief opinion on this. I know that Mr. Sidi from Mali has sent a note, and I don't think we would have time to read his note. But if you can summarize just a few, whether from yourself or from him, in 2 minutes, please. James.
Well, thank you. The note just came in, and I really haven't had much time to read through it. But I think during the course of the discussion, I will have to summarize it. Except that I wanted to add my voice to the many voices that I've mentioned about these coups. I think in Africa, precisely, we are not grappling with only the military coups. We have other coups that underlie, and the military coup is what comes as icing sugar. But we have had poverty coups, we have had malaria and other diseases coups, we've had COVID itself has been a coup, we've had constitutional coups. Now, you can talk about Africa, everything. And the question comes to me, I'm like, what went wrong with us Africans? Just like St. Paul writes to the Galatians, I mean, what happened to you, you foolish Galatians? I mean, someone would have to pose that question if we are Galatians. And so once these things come into my mind, they make me very, very uncomfortable. First and foremost, even when we look at the coups, who is involved in the coups? Many of the coups are orchestrated by the young people. They are the actors who are there. So literally speaking, we must also address the issues that actually force the young people to be the first culprits, to be the low-hanging fruits, to be persuaded to pick arms and go and join these schools. Many of them even below the age of 18. And the question is why? Why? Africa is at war with its own self. We used to have, we had colonialists. Some were colonized by British, others by French, others by whoever. Now, Africa is actually saying it's an independent continent. Many of these over 54 countries are independent states without any other colonies. So who is colonizing us? Africans are colonizing themselves, either through coups, either through constitutional coups, using parliaments to change constitutions, and these vices must be addressed before actually they escalate. It is very saddening to hear that Mali is at war, Burkina Faso is at war, Ethiopia is at war, DRC is at war, everywhere is war. So is this a war continent? Those are things that someone would need really. And what kind of image are we portraying to the rest of the other continents? What story are we writing to Europe, to Asia, to? So I think there is something to do with mindset change that we have to address, but also issues of greed. Of course, I look at this, someone is, sugarcoating it with the word corruption. I think this is total greed. We are just too greedy, and we never get satisfied. A leader comes to a position and wants to hold it till Jesus comes back. So it is really trouble for us, and it's very good that as we share some of these opinions. I was looking at the list of countries in Africa that have undergone or that have had the existence of these schools, of these schools, and some countries take lead. Many of them in West Africa. Actually, West Africa is a part of Africa. I could call it a West African coup d'etat kind of state. And here you are telling me, when you are here, you are talking about ECOWAS, ECOMO. I was like, wow, at least those ones can talk about that. What do I have to talk about East African community? Yes, we are getting new applicants. DRC wants to join the East African community. But what is there that is actually motivating them then to join when borders are closed everywhere, where business is not happening, where you cannot just cross to any other country like that? So what is even motivating them to join? Anyway, that can be a discussion for the future. But as of now, I think we have a lot of coup d'etats deep within our minds, deep within our communities, deep and not necessarily at country level. So we must have to deal with all these issues that breed the coup d'etats, and ensure that going forward we prepare the future generations, to take responsibility. We try to sanitize the current population. We sanitize, it's the word that has come on board now. We have to sanitize ourselves, our minds, so much that in the future democracy may prevail. For now, over to you, Paul.
Thank you very much, James. You raised a lot of questions there, and I'm going to, because I have the power to do so, I'm going to be saddling the village boy with answering a lot of the questions that James has raised in his short speech. But then, before I put my question to Mr. George, I'm going to attempt to answer this question about why there is so much. Perhaps there is a coup, or a lot of unrest in West Africa, while uh, East Africa seem to be relatively peaceful. and I may be wrong, but then I have eminent scholars here who might prove me wrong. I think West Africans, by the reason of my encounters with many people from many East African countries, which include Kenya, Uganda, and Zimbabwe recently, I find that many East African youths are obedient. They don't ask questions. They are scared to death of their government. They, even when they are outside of their country, they can't still, they are still dead. They are dead scared of talking about their government. This we are doing now, as we do it about Nigerian government, and we can do it in West Africa. It's almost impossible for you to have it in any of the East African countries about their talking about their government, because they will be unpicked. In fact, there are people in Rwanda. Yeah, people talk about Rwanda as being a beautiful state. They have new train and all of those things. A population of 15 million people or thereabout. Even when YouTubers who go and say, okay, the government has not done this, and people, they go and arrest them in their house and they disappear. It's not that they arrest you and put you in prison and your parents can come see you. No, you disappear. You just disappear. I've written an article about a guy who just suddenly disappears. A poet, a brilliant poet, who writes poets and speaks poetry in their language. He just suddenly disappeared because government people just came to his house, and I think it's been more than a year now. Nobody knows his whereabouts. Even his family cannot go to the police to ask, to demand for them to look for him. He just disappeared. He's gone. Nobody has heard from him. So I'm supposing, I may be wrong, okay? So, and that's why we have these scholars here to to disagree with me. It's okay. Now, Mr. George, my question to you is this: what is responsible for the continuous failures of public institutions in Africa? Because I have listed some of the things, and that's why I'm not going to be asking you what is causing the military takeovers. But I've already done my own research. So I'm saying one of the reasons for this is failures of government institutions, public institutions in Africa, in many African countries. Or maybe we never had before, I don't know. Maybe those of you who studied history, like Village Boy and Mr. George might want to tell us, maybe did we ever have strong institutions in Africa? If not, maybe you just go straight to my question, which is, what is causing these incessant failures of government or public institutions in Africa? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The first one is disregard for expertise or expert knowledge for partisan political favorites. That's the first one, or what we in Ghana will simply call politicization and particization of the public sector or public institutions. So, in most part of our Africa, particularly in West Africa, once government change, most of the leaders and executives of the state institutions change. And most of these people do not go through any rigorous process in appointment. We have in most of these African countries, I used to speak to some of my colleagues in Nigeria, in Togo, in others. When parties in government changes, it affects even public sector heads. So for instance, we may have somebody who has trained all his life as a human resource manager of a state institution, which may not even be a political appointment. Once the leadership of the governance change, all those people also change. It affects institutional memory. It affects how governance is carried out, and it affects how party things are done. Another thing is that there is breakdown actually in social structure. When I talk about social structure in most of African countries, in fact, we were trained to take our time, to develop our time, to build up and rise up to position. So you have gone through all the ranks. Today, for purposes of because of how our politicians and people in government fragrantly display wealth, at the time that even they are begging you that things are not going well, cow down or give us more taxes, they themselves are driving in convoy, driving in very expensive vehicles, and then they are living lavishly, forces young people who may even be in public service, who may not be making much money, also want to live equal measure with those people. And so they all begin to milk the state resources through enemies. And so if you come to West Africa in particular, there are several government institutions which should be making profit and not making profit. If you take my country, for instance, in 2020, all the state institutions in my country, they've made losses. You talk about the electricity company, you talk about Ghana Water Company, you talk about even national development and national petroleum institutions. All those things are not making a headway. Apart from that, when a government starts a policy or a plan, once there is change of government, then all those programs are abandoned. And so they also start. So you see that we have a lot of policies we start with, we are not anywhere, it is cut down. And so when it happens, like, it affects even the public service. Then to add up insult to injury is that even some of the ministers that are appointed in order to head some of the institutions, they do not understand the ministries they are holding. And so they are not able to carry out programs that will benefit the young people. So when we talk about social structure, and you see the breakdown of social structure, for instance, that is also even adding up to some of the causes of the military. Everybody is quick now in West Africa to make money. Then another thing, you see, when you discuss West Africa, for instance, you must know that we have only 5 English-speaking countries in West Africa. You talk about Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Gambia, and then Liberia. Now, all the Francophone countries, Mali, Togo, and others, are still heavily tied to the apron of their colonial masters, which is France. And so sometimes, if you have governments that do not automatically using,
I think Mr. George is having issue with network. Right? Can you hear me? Village boy, can you hear me?
His network has broken down.
Yes, I can hear you.
But can you hear me now? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so the last one I was saying is that, yes, if for instance, you are not liked by metropolitan France because of the policy of assimilation, they consider the colonies as part of metropolitan France. So if you are a government in these French West Africa countries and you are not liked by France, they will overthrow you. And so just to add that, part of the overthrows also is foreign sponsored. And once there is always overthrows, it affects the public service. And so likely to say that all our public sector governments, they are not working. Nothing is happening. I mean, it's only Ghana and Nigeria that are doing a bit better. But the fact is that most of them are not working because of lack of quality experts in those sectors. There is frequent change of the leadership of our state institutions. When government change, they go with the government, and all those things affect some of those, So I talk about the continual grip of the colonial masters. We talk about flagrant display of wealth of our people in government. So, and there is also a problem of tapping the private sector into public performance. And why? Once there are experts that they can tap, they continue to bring party apparatchiks, friends who may not have expertise in this, so they start projects and end them. So largely, those are some of the factors that affect our governance structure, that's down to the public sector, and they are not delivering. And as a result of that, the economy continue to have problems. Another, I think the last one that I have mentioned is excessive borrowing. Most of our governments are borrowing, mortgage some of our state funds, and as a result of that, the economy is not developing, because you know that when you borrow and you don't use the money for things that will generate resources, you use the money to service your what I call recurrent expenditure, the country cannot develop. And you continue, the economy will be shrinking and the citizens will be suffering. Largely, those are some of the factors we are having in West Africa. To say that it's true in West Africa, particularly in Ghana and Nigeria, when our president make a mistake, we can insult him from this morning to the evening and continue tomorrow. Nobody will say anything. Unless, of course, you go beyond and you go into personal reason, then you'll be put before court. Even that one, you have a lawyer to go through the trial. So we have a bit of freedom compared to those in East Africa. That one, you are correct. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. You have done a very good job. I wanted to say that I'm glad that I are prepared for this subject. If I had not prepared myself, I probably would, because many of the things that I have as my questions here, each time I ask somebody to speak, you see them just as if they are reading my script. So I am glad that I have also have a quality guest in the house tonight. Thank you very much for doing so much justice to it. And I want Village Boy to attempt to answer many of the questions that Mr. James threw out earlier about what is wrong with Africa. And I'm asking Village Boy particularly because Village Boy is well traveled and is someone that is in Canada and still passionate about Africa and Nigeria. And so, what is wrong with Africa?
What is wrong in Africa with Africa? Maybe let me start with what James says. James says, who bewitched you, oh foolish Africans? Though he was very diplomatic, he did not say it. So I help him to conclude. I have to complete it. So it's not a funny thing. I think there is one major problem here. We don't build institutions, we build people, we build personality. One of the problem of Nkrumah then was because Nkrumah, though some people believe that he was very overambitious, was trying to create his dream of Pan-African Africanism, got him derailed. And because there was no institution, everything in Ghana then was built around him. So immediately he traveled, they just remove him the way they removed Gowan, when he was attending a OAU conference in those days. The major thing is that we build people, we don't build this institution. This account for most of the things that Mr. George said. Project is abandoned. There's no continuity in government. This guy started this project. When he leaves office, another person leave it and start his own, even when this is a similar project. And if God have mercy, you cannot complete that project also, when he leaves, another person abandon it, because as far as they are concerned, that project belongs to that person. So we have to look inward as, okay, how can we build institution? Not around the people. We are building things around the people. And that is, I mean, in the last chapter in my book, my new book, for those who may not know, which I call my quest for Nigeria by Ribat, I stated that the dictatorial tendency in all of us, and it's everywhere, it's not just those in government, even in a smaller office, you cannot challenge your boss. So whatever he says is right. In the Yoruba language, they call it KBAC, which means somebody you cannot ask questions. And that should actually be to God. It's only God that we could say that you cannot ask questions. So we have this culture whereby people are cowed. Yes, the West Africa may be a bit better than the East African. In that we still make noise. But what we make in West Africa is noise. And it's most of this noise that is leading to the coups. Various coups that we are having. We are not as docile, we are more aggressive than the East African, but we are not yet determined in asking for accountability from our leaders. We worship our leaders. because our leaders are our institutions. So a leader sees himself as the institution. That's why the military, I think it was Abacha who said, we are not only in government, we are in power. So telling us to behave. So the thing is like people see this is my regime. Each president sees it as his regime, and this is across all West Africa, across all Africa. Look at Museveni, that is, I mean, in Uganda. The guy is not, he doesn't want to leave. Yet he's not offering anything because the guy is stronger than the nation. There was an election that was supposed to have sent him away, and he just first he considered, then a few hours later he said no, the election was not was a fraud. So these are the kind of the thing that because we are building people, or whatever institution we say we have, we build it around people. And when you build an institution around people, that institution cannot survive. That is the fundamental thing that is wrong with us at Africa. As an African, I've asked myself, and I'm asking it openly again, is democracy actually for us? Because we don't follow anything democratic. Democracy is about debate, it's about making a choice, it's about succumbing to superior arguments. But what do we have? Even in civilian government now, you still see government in Nigeria will tell you that this is what we are going to do, and there's no going back. When the civilian government is telling you there's no going back, that is not democracy. So is democracy for us, or should we look for a form of government that could serve us better? I don't know. I'm not sure. Ordinarily, the tenet of democracy, which is based on checks and balances, it should be good for every nation. But how have we operated around democracy? We are still building that democracy around people. We are not building democratic institutions that can checkmate one another. In Nigeria today, we know what the judiciary is. Is the judiciary independent as it ought to be? Is the legislature independent as it ought to be? A Senate president will go to pay homage in the house of the president. How will you in such a situation? Because as far as concerned, the president, the Senate president will be telling the president that the president is the father of the nation. Fine, symbolically, is the father of the nation, but by virtue of their duty, that is not where is there to make law for the people. It's there not to be paying homage and prostrating to the president. So I think one of the fundamental things we have to think about, how do we build institutions in Africa? Institution that is not built around people. That is one of the things that is wrong with us. That is what is majorly bewitching us. We don't have institutions. We have people. And because we have people, the people who assume power, they become power drunk. Absolute power corrupt, absolutely. We gave absolute power to our leaders. The power of Nigeria president, no president in the entire world has it. Go and check our constitution. No president in the whole world has the kind of power that Nigeria president has. So that's why he can do and undo. If you are the man, you can argue from money till now, from Jericho to whatever, to Lodeba, for those who read the Bible. If you say this is not going to happen, it's not going to happen. So we don't have institutions, or we are not building institutions. We are building institutions, whatever institution we have, around people, and that is not sustainable. The moment that person goes and we bring another person, we start building around that person again. That is why we don't have sustainable structure all over the continent. In Uganda today, the moment either by death or everything that Museveni leaves now, another person that will come, we will start building the structure around him again. And the person will come and condemn everything that Museveni has done. We saw, for those in Nigeria, we know what happened in Imo State when Korosha left. The guy that before, I think the guy was eventually removed by Hodioha, was removed for almost 2 months after. He destroyed everything that Korosha built. He has forgotten that those things that he built were built for the people of Imo State. But because that thing was attached to a predecessor, he destroyed some of them. Then the court removed him. But those things that has been destroyed. And the money that was destroyed there was taxpayers' money. You go all over the place, you see abandoned projects because it is not the person in power that the particular moment that initiated that project, and because the institution is built around him, he said, look, I don't want to do anything with it. Then again, we don't understand the concept of I've talked about the power of citizenship here in previous editions. Then we don't understand in Africa the concept of taxpayers. We don't understand it yet, because taxpayers determine things, because you are accountable to the taxpayers. Our people in power don't see themselves accountable to any taxpayer, because in their mind, no taxpayer exists. Let me pause there before Paul.
Thank you, sir.
Paul, sorry. It's just an addition to what he said. I think one of the things we've jammed between me and him is the structure of our educational system in West Africa. Also, I think we are heavily concentrated on grammar type of courses than technical vocational education. And so we churn out a number of graduates that cannot do handiworks for themselves. And so we have that also add up to the unemployment and the underemployment in West Africa. And so it is also a reason, if you study carefully, you know that it is also our part of the world, that's West Africa, that we have a number of young people who always go through Libya and others on the high sea that they are going to Europe. West Africa dominated more than the, what do you call it? But because if you go to East Africa, a number of young people in East Africa are not too interested to work in government setup or in public. They want to work for themselves. If you go to Kenya and others, there are a lot of fantastic they are doing with these innovative ideas, young people going into entrepreneurship. That is very weak when you come to West Africa. So a number of West African people, what they want to do is to go to school and work in government. And when you start business another one is that even those in business, there are business people whose business collapsed because their parties are not in government. There are contractors who may have worked. If you go to Ghana, Nigeria, and others, they may have worked, but because there's change of government, their party is not in power, they will not even pay them those monies. Those are some of the addition to what my brother, you say village boy, I will call him. If you are from Nigeria, compared to Ghana, you are from a big city. Thank you. Because the population of Lagos alone will absorb about 70% of our population in Ghana.
Don't worry, George. At the background, I will tell you the concept behind the village boy.
Okay, thank you very much, George and the village boy. I want to ask Michael. Michael, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so sorry that you and Michael and James are kind of taking the back seat today. It's okay, I'm sure you understand. I want to ask you, because I know that you are passionate about the leadership of AU and ECOWAS. What is it that why is it that AU and ECOWAS are unable, to prevent this incessant attempting or maybe attempted coup and the one that has been successful?
Yeah. Thank you so much. And this is also a concern to many young Africans, just like myself. By the virtue of my interaction and visit with to AU, and some of the top functionaries. I've had this is a question that I've asked at a time, but I came to realize that it is difficult for you to bite a finger that fits you, because AU, ECOWAS as institutions, as regional institutions, yes, regional, because when we are talking about it globally, they are regional institutions. It is difficult for them to actually challenge some governments in Africa because their funding support, their sustainability is heavily dependent on funds that are being contributed by most of these African continents. I mean, these African countries. So that leads us to saying that there is more of, should I say, Africa as a continent now respecting external opinion than we are going to respect, or rather than respecting our own institution. For example, if EU coughs today, I'm sure that any country within Africa that EU coughs at, the country will have to sit up. If US government should cough, not even to talk to Nigerian government on any issue, I'm certain that the following day, irrespective of whatever the issue may be, Nigerian government will sit up. So just imagine AU as a regional institution telling Nigeria something when you know that Nigeria is a big boy within the African region. So it therefore tells us that AU, EU, and SADC and other sister regional institutions within Africa, they are only, just like Village Boy said, they are toothless bulldog, as it were, that can only bark but cannot bite. However, one will not actually overlook some steps they have taken in terms of policy review, peer mechanism review that has been taking place, African governance architecture, and all of those. These are rich elements. These are rich treaties that AU as a regional institution, they have prepared for us. But most of these treaties that we have, very interesting ones for that matter, how many of the governments that have signed to all of these treaties, all of these agreements, are actually making use of all these elements, or rather instruments, in their respective countries? So I think we can only continue to observe that AU will become a strong, or rather, yes, let me use the word strong, institution with time, when you and I and other citizens interested in Africa or occupying it is a very unique space in the scheme of things globally, can actually continue to render opinion to support a what do you call it, AU, ECOWAS, and other sister organizations. And it will shock you to know rather, that AU as an institution receives funding support from other sister organizations in the world. The likes of European Union support them. The present building in housing African Union was donated by the Chinese government. So who therefore tells us that most of the issues being discussed within the environment of the African Union Secretariat is not even being listened to? The plans, the good plans that we have, is not being listened to, or rather, are they not being listened to by the Chinese government that donated the building to them? Because it's such a sophisticated one. And I had, perhaps this may be right or wrong, that some meetings are not even, some sensitive meetings do not even take place within the AU Secretariat, because they cannot actually predict or presume what may become of them. I mean, after such discussion, maybe some disruption strategy may come up and all of those things. So I beg to say that let us keep engaging. With time, AU as an institution, regional institution, will become stronger, like we have the likes of EU and other sister organizations in the world. And before I round up this conversation, my comment, permit me to say that I beg to differ a little about the freedom within the West African sub-region. I think the freedom we are talking about is only enjoyed by we, the Anglophone countries. When we go to the Francophone nations within Africa, these are countries where suppressive nature of government is unthinkable. See what Paul Biya is doing in Cameroon. This is guy that has been in government for yesteryears. See what it's doing to the Ambazonia people, the southern Cameroon, and all other parts of Africa. And that leads me to subscribing to the position of Mr. George, that all of these francophone countries, they are still very much attached to the apron of their colonial masters, and which is one of the reasons why what is happening in Mali now, that the guys that took over government abolished French as the official language. So all of this calls for questioning, and I, as a person, I subscribe to this ideology that no, let us embrace our indigenous lifestyle as a people. It will be good for us, not just accepting whatever is being thrown to us, hook, line, and sinker. We have identity, and we should be proud of our identity, irrespective of what our present situation may be. Thank you so much.
All right, Michael, thank you very much. I
I think
agree
I'm
that
coming in.
yeah. Wait, James, I will give you the opportunity. I'm sure you must have been waiting. Now I'm
We
going to
we are
ask.
manning here with the comments. Yeah.
Okay, so James, I'll give you opportunity to make your comment, but then I would want you to try to consider this question. Why is it that Africans generally, African countries, why is it that we seem to lack intentional leaders with respect to the failures of AU and ECOWAS? And then you can make your comment. And then after that, I will be asking Mr. George to help us understand why is it that most of the African nations that were colonized by French remain very, very poor and unsafe till date.
Well, thank you, Paul. I think the question I will just try to attempt. Why is it that Africa doesn't have intentional? I don't know whether indeed it doesn't have intentional leaders or we have failed to understand the intentions of our leaders, perhaps. So, in my view, I think if you asked any leader in Africa, they will tell you they have lots and lots of good intentions. But of course, never judge a book by its cover. So, what comes after absolute power corrupts absolutely. So eventually, someone settles and finds a home. It's like someone they've gone for the traditional marriage, and so that first election is like a traditional marriage, and then the second election is a wedding, and so it's permanent and pensionable. It's very very ridiculous here in Africa, and that actually does send a very wrong image to the rest of the world. But getting back to what my brother Michael has just ended with, he has been highlighting a number of issues, and my concern is about the African Union. And the question I would pose there: what is the union about in Africa? So, if can anybody try to unpack for me that union, the unity of Africa? What is that? I don't seem to understand it. We don't even have to speak the same language. We don't have a common agenda. Even when we came up with the 2063 agenda, what you call the African agenda in form of, like, say, the Sustainable Development Goals for that was actually put up by Africa, the 2063 agenda. No one talks about it. No country talks about it. I have been searching on Google. The stories coming up about this, the recent coups in Africa. You talk about the one in Equatorial Guinea, Equatorial Guinea in 2017, the one in Gabon 2019, the one in Sudan, and Sudan, by the way, tops the entire Africa with coups, with about 19 coups, since time immemorial. And then Ethiopia, the very recent one, I don't know whether it has actually subsided. So what have you, or have we seen any message, any communique come from that house called AU in Addis Ababa to even condemn? Very silent, very silent. Why? Maybe there could be someone behind this, and so they just don't want to bite the tongue that fat, the arm that feeds them. Because if at the level of AU, we are also still being funded, we are not united in terms of currency, in terms of development agenda, in terms of voice. We're just there, we sign documents, we ratify them, we even failed to domesticate them. There is this African, is it what? ACDEC, African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance. Why is it that most of these West African countries that ratified it, domesticated it, the ACDEC, they are nowhere to live, to show cause that indeed we ratified and domesticated the African Charter on elections, democracy, and governance. But all we are seeing stories on Al Jazeera, BBC, coups. And of course, you may say, like someone said, I think it's Paul, that you have some kind of freedom. I think it is not freedom. It is just bondage. Maybe it is ignorance, perhaps, in my view, because the freedom on WhatsApp, talking, and then no results, no meaningful results. For me, that is not freedom. I want to see meaningful freedom. So what you call freedom, in your view, is not freedom. I would rather buy the freedom George talked about, where young people are engaged in technical and vocational things, and they are minding about their own business, maybe to fill up the vacuum that is within the private sector, to create jobs, to come up innovations. That is the freedom that I would really want to see, because that is somehow meaningful than the freedom of talking on WhatsApp, Facebook every other day, Twitter, and then so what? So what? When people are being killed day and night, I don't think that is freedom in my view. Alongside that, I wanted really to re-echo what my brother George said in regard to the quality of education in Africa, in terms the corruption tendencies and armies. I think our strength as Africa can be summarized in one aspect: militarism. Militarism is our strength. Everywhere, militarism. Even a family head will actually use military language. Even a television, you will hear it's a political command center, something like that. I've heard something in Uganda, one of the televisions saying we are the political command center. It's even the language is becoming militaristic. I think this is wrong, in my view. In my view, it is wrong. So we need to rethink, and I'm glad, well, you can say anything about the Ugandan government, for instance. Yes, there are loopholes here and there, many of them, but there is some kind of way they are trying to, we are building some civic competence. Yes, it has not been to the level of the West African countries, but the civic competencies are actually coming up. And of course, this will take us some time. But what I must have to say is we need mindset change in all that we are doing. Even if it's young people out there, I know that these purported donors have brought in lots and lots of money in Africa, basically on one aspect, training us in leadership. But this is the leadership that is just opening up our eyes to throw us into the furnace, to throw us into the coups. We should actually reach a moment of telling them that those conferences, trainings in leadership must go alongside economic empowerment. Because a person who is economically empowered will get the value judgment, will look at the opportunity cost of where to spend much of their time. You understand? Someone or a group of young people who are busy exporting their coffee and getting money from the specialty markets, I doubt they will join the coup. A group of young people who have trained and are able to manufacture furniture, good furniture, and they are busy into that, I doubt they will actually join the coup. But this is because we are just there redundant, and we call that freedom. That's not freedom, my brother. Can I end there for the meantime? Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, James. Now,
So thank you.
I want George to attempt to answer the question that I've asked earlier.
Yes, Paul,
which is,
that's
just 1 minute, please.
Mhm.
Why is it that most of the countries that have been colonized by French or that were colonized by French remain poor and unsafe till date? And then, Village Boy, I want you to get ready for this one. I want the Village Boy to look at the way forward. And the way forward to ending military takeovers in Africa, especially since history tells us that it has never worked. You know, looking at whether we should go back to feudalism or any other system, maybe that we may prefer over democracy. Okay, George.
Thank you very much, Paul. Before I move to the
George, I think you're
the problems. Which can you hear me?
okay. Now I
Can you
can
hear me
begin
now?
to hear you again. Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you now.
So one of the things that makes the ECOWAS and AU weak is that ECOWAS and AU itself, they don't have any standard to measure their people. Or let me talk about AU particularly. In 2003, the AU developed what we call the African Peer Review Mechanism, for which they started measuring themselves, where they call the head of state to come and talk about their country, what they are doing, alongside some key performance indicated. I remember those days we talk about democracy and political governance, economic governance and management, corporate governance, socioeconomic development. Today, I am not sure they measure each other to see how each of the countries are doing. So if you don't have any standard to measure, how are you able to check them? And so for within the countries, they don't even have respect. Anyway, that's just by the way. Let's move to French West Africa. To understand the underdevelopment of the West African countries that were colonized by the France, you must understand the policy of colonization then. You know, unlike we, those from the British West Africa, we were colonized using what we call the indirect rule. And the indirect rules still allow for some space for us to take decision in the management of our country. And so that is why up to today, we have a blend of chieftaincy system with the modern governance. However, in French West Africa, they use a policy we call policy of assimilation. And that policy of assimilation, for me, in my interpretation, created what I call a class system. Because you need to go through, either through schooling or to live some standard of life to qualify as a French. So for instance, all the colonies of French West Africa were considered as part of the metropolitan French. However, you need to meet some standard to qualify as a full French citizen. And being a full French citizen at the time give you some level of standard to live. So for instance, when you go to Senegal, there were about 4 cities at the time during colonialism that were built to be just like France. So you have Dakar, which is the capital city now. We have a city called Saint Louis, then we have Gorée, and then we have Rufisque. Those 3 cities, when you go through the system,
George, please let me quickly pass this announcement to some people behind here. There is Bex. There is a Bex behind. There is a John Kagaju. Please go to the Facebook page and watch. Bex, if you can hear me, I don't know if you can hear me. And there is also a John Kagaju. Please go to the Facebook page and watch live from the Facebook page. The link that we are using is for the guests.
Okay, I think John is our colleague. He's from Rwanda.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so
you should go to the Facebook page, Opinion Sharers. All right, thank you, Bex. Yeah, all right, continue, John. George,
thank you very much. So because of that, it means if you are not able to meet some standard at a time, you cannot be qualified as a full Frenchman. Now, after colonialism, when the Francophones got independence, France still controls everything that happens in these French West Africa countries. They determine their development policies. They determine who becomes the head of state and all those others there. And so when you fall with them, so you do not have an open discussions with policies like we have in British West Africa. And so it is the state that determines what will happen at other parts of the country. So if you go to Togo, for instance, unlike where we can question our leaders, we have local government system determine what should happen in my area. In Togo, everything is determined in Lomé. And so as a result of that, development is not locally centered. So we have top-down approach instead of down-top approach, like we have in most countries. For instance, if you go to Nigeria, the state governors are very powerful. And it runs down to most of the local areas. I'm not saying they are fully developed, but within the Francophone West Africa, you cannot have that system. And once you do not allow local participation in decision making to determine the development they need, you won't get the desired development. And once there is no discussion at the local level, it means that there will not be funding mechanisms also to take up local development structures. So for instance, if you come to Ghana, for instance, we have a system where part of the national resources is allocated to the local administration in order to carry out their own development structures. That you cannot see in most, West African countries. And like my other colleague said, the problem currently happening in Mali, it is because they want to win themselves off French domination. If you look at Mali, we know the history behind Mali in terms of a very high tourist sector, where it's a tourism country. If you take where our colleague is coming from the northern sector, I think that is it Kumbisali. No, they have a lot of mineral resources, lot of tourism potential, but because of that French connection, and at the same time, most of the mineral resources in all these Francophone countries is controlled by France. In fact, we used to even make mockery of them that few years ago, if I am making a call to Togo, which is my next door neighbor to the eastern of Ghana, the call even go to France before coming to Togo, because most of their setups are in France. So you cannot develop a country when you are not there. So the major problem of our colleagues from the French West Africa, it is also because they are tied up to French, and not only tied politically. In terms of economy, everything comes from France. Even the educational system, the quality checks and everything comes from France. And once France is controlling your education, I'm sure there may not even be copious research to see what is wrong with our country in order to be able to tailor our research to the development needs of our country. And so that's been the situation of the Francophone country. Then worst of all, they cannot even speak to issues. The civil society in Francophone West Africa is dead. And so like my other colleague was saying earlier, they don't even have an iota of civic responsibility in terms of questioning government, questioning their leaders in terms of what has to happen in their country. And I think that has created the problem of development in Francophone West Africa. And I must tell you, I happen to travel sometimes to Togo, which is not even far from my country. And on few occasions, I also go to Ivory Coast. Beyond some of the big cities you hear, there are living in deplorable situations. Sometimes you go there and say, okay, so my country is not bad after all. And that's the situation we have in Francophone West Africa. Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you very much, George. I'm looking forward to setting up a lot of discussions like this, such that it will be like an educational opportunity for us to share, because we have many of us that are very, very highly knowledgeable about what is happening to us. And I think part of the democracy is talking. Like Michael often emphasized, that we need to continue to engage ourselves. And I agree with him. So I hope if we can have a few minutes after we have logged off from the online, I mean, on the online broadcast, we talk briefly on how we can set up further discussions on issues pertaining to Africa democracy, whether we even need Africa democracy, like Village Boy often says sometimes. Village Boy, please, after Village Boy, I'm going to be taking maybe one minute, just your concluding remarks, so that we can close. We've been here for almost an hour and a half. Yeah. So, Village Boy, please.
Yeah, the way forward. Number one, we have to be the architect of our own destiny. Africa has to brace up and become a viable contributor to the world affair. We have to change our orientation. Of course, I agree with George about education. I also dedicated a whole chapter in my new book, how the kind of education I believe we need. We should have an education that is established to solve our own problems. Our education now cannot provide solution to our immediate problems. So we have to change our curriculum such that our problems can be indigenously addressed by the kind of education we have. And of course, we why most of our underlying problem again against Africa is because we have these resources that we are not in control of. Until we begin to control our own resources ourselves. For instance, why should I've said this over and over again. Each time I'm traveling to Nigeria and I have to stop over in Amsterdam and I have to buy chocolate to take to Lagos, I always weep, cry inside of me, because I know that this chocolate I'm buying at an expensive rate is the cocoa that is produced at my backyard, sold to the world cheaply. Now I'm maybe forced to buy expensive chocolate. And if I don't bring it, if I don't buy them, and I come to Lagos, people say, look, you didn't bring us chocolate. And I say, okay, I brought. And each time I'm giving them, they feel happy, but I feel sad. Because this, our products, our minerals, we should be able to be processing it and sent to the world. But we cannot develop our process, our product, if we don't have education, functional education. So if I want to believe that education is one thing that we have to sit down and reinvent across Africa. I know for Francophone Africa, it's still going to be a lot of challenge until they break away from France. It will be difficult for them to do. Perhaps those of us in the West African, in the British African countries, so to say, if you can take the bold step and rejig our educational system so that our education begin to address our indigenous problem. If we become productive, net producer of if we turn our agri product into final product and export to the world, if we begin to regain our self-respect as a people, of course, the people in the French West, French African countries, we also want to emulate over time. If we begin to, our youthful guy, our youth population begin to demand for accountability rather than begging for the crumbs from the master table. If we begin to hold our destiny in our hand, see, let us be sincere with ourselves. No one will develop Africa better than Africans themselves. No power in the world, no matter how, see, all these aids, they are giving us this grant. This is not going to solve our problems. For crying aloud, it is high time we use the brain, our God-given brain, Because the way we present ourselves to the world now is as if our brain is inferior. And whereas it is not inferior. It's just like we are being subjected to kind of emotional distrust of ourselves. We don't even trust in our capability. We have been fed with the idea that we are inferior, and we have accepted that inferiority mentality. It is high time we let go of those ones. It is high time we begin to harness our brain for ourselves. We are the architects of our future. Nobody is going to build Africa for us. We must build Africa ourselves. So then we have to appeal to our people. The loan, most of the loan we are taking, that Africans are taking from foreign countries. Unfortunately, the reality is that this is our money that was stolen by our people and kept with these people. And these people are now sending their money back to us with exorbitant interest rates. That makes it triple tragedy for us. We have to win ourselves. Then we have to the concept of loving your neighbor as yourself. We have to allow love to prevail in Africa. So when you love people, when you are in government, you see your position as a position of service to cater to the need of your people, to cater to the needs of those that are vulnerable. Today in Africa, we ridicule those who are vulnerable. Well, actually, those leaders should be concerned about making those who are vulnerable as happy as those who are not. So these are the thing we have. These are the thing we have to work on. We have to work on ourselves. We have to work on our psyche. So we have to also win ourselves these beggarly elements. We will always beg. We like to beg. We are begging them to return our artifacts. We are begging them to give us grant. We are begging them. No. We have to remove that beggarly element from us. We have to hold our destiny in our hands. Africa have resources, human resources all over the world. Let us harness that reward. I mean, the resources, and begin to find our own solutions to our own problems. We can solve our problem because we know where the shoe pinches. That is all I want to say for now.
All right, thank you very much. So, thank you for all those who have, all the guests. We have all done fantastically well. I already have the topic for our next discussion. If you have an agreement, please, if you have other guests who are highly knowledgeable about the issue of education in Africa, uh, academia especially, please do reach out to me. Our next discussion would be restructuring education in Africa. Please, if you know somebody who might be interested in this, in discussing this topic across Africa, please let me know. I'm looking at people from different countries across Africa. Let's have James. Please, let's have your
Well,
final suggestion.
thank you, and I am excited to learn of the next discussion topic. Well, this is the reason we are here. Actually, we are here because this discussion is partly, becoming the bedrock of that future discussion. We are here because of education system. We are here. We are people who are busy studying things to do with the Netherlands, Rhinelands. I'm in Uganda. I'm busy struggling with the history of South Africa. Studying the Canadian prairies. I've never been to Canada, so I don't know. I've never seen anywhere any job in Uganda being advertised and asking for someone who is most qualified in Canadian prairies. I don't know when that job is coming through, but these are things that we studied. So I look forward anxiously towards that discussion. However, with the one we have the discussion at table now, I think my summing up points would be that indeed we have a tendency of those people who have portrayed themselves as leaders in Africa where in reality they are dealers. So we do not have really African leaders, we have African dealers. And that's why it speaks to why people come and everything they are to do, starting from borrowing, to trying to entrench themselves in power for forever, never, never, until I don't know when. These are issues that we actually must make every young, sensible African or every other African sleepless, so much that we see when and how we can sanitize Africa. It is not good to even begin classifying ourselves as, the Francophonie, the Anglophonie. These are stereotypes, in my view. Recently, I belong to a WhatsApp platform of about 200 plus people, and I posted an article about why we must learn French, especially those of us in the Anglophone countries. I am very surprised that a good number of my friends picked it up and gotten the interest, and now we have actually run 2 weeks of we have formulated the French class. We are studying every evening on Zoom. Why? Because it is embarrassing. Recently, when we were in a training with George in Europe, many of us were able to express ourselves in English, but our friends from Mali were hardly expressing themselves in English, and these guys were speaking French. With my broken French, I was trying, to come up and speak to them. So we need to, if we must talk of African unity, let's diversify and learn these languages beyond Africa, because they have come and these are our brothers. Finally, the leaders we are castigating to be dealers are our brothers, are our uncles, our aunties, our mothers, our friends, our relatives. So it is incumbent on you and me to speak to them in our family meetings, to change the course of their thinking. Otherwise, we are talking about them as if we don't know them. These are brothers, these are our sisters. Some of you are even beneficiaries because of these leaders. So it is time now to call a spade what? A spade, for the sake of the common good of the entire Africa. I thank you, Paul.
Thank you, James. Thank you very much. Let's have a final word from George.
Thank you very much, Paul. Before I take my final, I want to assure Village Boy that the next time he's coming to Nigeria, I'll send you a box of chocolate from Ghana. Ghana, we produce very good chocolate called the Golden Tree chocolate. And so I'll send you.
I'm aware of that. What you will send to me, send me your cocoa tea.
Okay. I'll send you with what got the tea, yeah. You see, it saddened my heart that when we talk about ECOWAS, even talking about promoting free trade, the areas we think they should be going is not the areas I think. You see, it's not a talk shop. Nigeria is a powerhouse for producing oil. My reading shows that Nigeria buys some quantity of salt from Brazil. When Ghana can actually develop its salt sector and supply Nigeria that oil, that salt for the petrochemical industry, whilst we should be able to buy oil from Nigeria rather than going to buy oil all the way in Venezuela, South Africa, or whatever. You see, that is what we should be able to trade among ourselves. Fortunately, they have launched now what they call the African Free Continental Free Trade. We are hoping that when it starts, we will see more trading within our sister countries, and then we will grow wealth within our country. I am also praying that as this discussion goes on, I can see Nigerian businessman, when Dangote brings his cement to Ghana, will treat him just like Ghanaian companies, not to give him more taxes than even as Chinese who is bringing. So we'll give some lenient strategies to a lenient tax regime to a Chinese than our brother from Nigeria, or when a Ghanaian company is going to Togo. When we begin to do that, we'll begin to see Africa as one place. Today, by virtue of us and the excessive love for luxury. I was in Europe with James. You cannot count the number of V8s that are used in Denmark, one of the most richest countries in the world. If you come to Ghana, when just they were going to beg people for tax, for us to pay more tax, they went there with over 20 V8s. Land Cruisers. When you are going to beg people, you see, the largesse, the sheer, you see, it's like an insult. I would have preferred that if our country is in crisis now, we can all decide that, oh, let's reduce our salaries, let's reduce, what do you call it, our income allowances for the state to recoup and reorganize. But you cannot ask me to tighten my belt when you yourself, you have losing your belt. And so we should all work together. And I am praying AU will begin to look for strategies to develop youth. And so that coup d'etats will remain. Nobody like coups. In fact, there are some people who even say we want coup. If coup will come, will come. If you hear the shot of a gun before, you will not even want coup. But it is because of desperation. It is because of what? Frustration that people will just speak the way they speak. I've been to Sierra Leone. And when you see what civil war has done to a beloved country, you will not pray for that in your country. If you go to Liberia, what they went through, you will not want that. At least I want to walk freely. And then also, if you are even stealing our money, leave our girlfriends for us. You still have money, you take our girlfriends too. And then all those who add up to our frustration. Paul, thank you very much for this opportunity. I think your next topic is on point. And if I have the opportunity, I will. I'll also look around to see some of the people that are at our helm of educational restructuring in Ghana. We are currently going through some level of restructuring. I will recommend them and they'll come on board and they will give a very vivid and a very vivid presentation. I thank you very much. I thank James. I thank all the people that gave me the opportunity. And I think that all the people watching from Ghana will be happy with the kind of discussion we have. I always say that Africa, with the young brains we have an opportunity. Village Boy, when I joined you in Canada recently on a holiday, I'll check on you. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you very much, George.
Excuse me, Paul.
Awesome.
I just wanted to remind George that there was a coup in his country very recently where his parliament was fighting over one vote. That was also another kind of coup.
We have a very strong opposition.
Where MPs, parliamentarians are fighting everywhere. In Uganda, it happened.
We have a very good opposition, and for the first time in our political history, we have our parliament that the opposition is 137, the government is 137 with one independent member, and we have the speaker of parliament coming from an opposition party, so you cannot get bills passed easily. That is the reason.
Okay, thank you very much, George, James, and the Village Boy. Before the Village Boy gives his final word, please don't go yet. I'd like us to talk for 2 minutes at the background after we have logged off. I'd like to say that Africa's greatest resources remains untapped, undeveloped, or underdeveloped, and that is not the natural resources. It is the teeming youths, and that's why I'm wanting us to look at the issue of refurbishing or repanabitting or redeveloping or restructuring our education in Africa. Village Boy, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. Coup is not something that is good, but sometimes, like George said, out of frustration, people call for coup. For the past few years, they've been calling for coup in Nigeria. It's just like, so we prefer coup. One of the retrogression that we have had, I recall when Ghana got into independence, even before Nigeria, they were on a kind of trajectory to become a model for Africa of governance in Africa. But that coup that removed Nkrumah, was a great setback. And the same thing in Nigeria today. those of us who are a bit older, this kind of impunity we see in government, this kind of recklessness we see in government today in Nigeria, is because of the impact of the military on the society, on the governance, where impunity reigns supreme. Before then, I mean, when we see have close to democracy, semblance of democracy, it was not this bad. So, no matter how it is, a coup will always be a setback for the people. It's not something that should be encouraged. But then again, we have our frustration. How do we get out of our frustration? How do we get the government to be accountable? I believe we need a lot of civil engagement, civil participation, and like again, I said, we have to reinvent our education. We have to this current education is not serving any useful purpose for us. It makes us timid, it makes us selfish, it makes us to just think about our salary and nothingness. So thank you again. It has been a very interesting time. Until we see you again. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very, very much for all our viewers and those who have shared. Thank you to all the guests. George from Ghana, James from Uganda, Mr. Sidi from Mali, who was unable to join us because Mali happened to him. The internet there was poor. And the village boy joining us from Canada, Michael from Abuja. Thank you very, very much. We'll be back again next weekend with another topic. But while we'll still begin to rest on this one, I already have the next topic for this Africa or my continental brothers and sisters to discuss with me. It will be restructuring education in Africa. So if you know anyone who is an intellectual, who is an academic, who is willing to share their opinion with us, please do reach out to me. You can write to us through the email, and if you go to our Facebook page, you would also see a number there. You can write to me through that WhatsApp number, or you can also drop a message on any of our social media platform. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and we are on YouTube. Please do subscribe to our YouTube. We are actually building a lot of content that will be useful for us. So thank you very much. My name is Faduma Biodun Paul, and Opinion Sharers is a platform where individuals, ordinary people, everyday people have been given opportunity to have their views heard. Thank you very, very much. I'll be back again. And from me and all of us, I want to say bye bye for today.